Oh, sorry. Good morning. My camera's falling to bits. I think I'm screwing it in the wrong way. Anyway, good morning. Yes, good morning. Today it's back to basics, isn't it? Hey, that was me riding away from the house, just like the old days, and I feel better for it. So today we are off to a town which has lots of history for us to talk about. There's a legend to talk about, and it's got, weirdly enough, an entire outdoor art exhibition. So we're going to be doing art on Yakko rides again. I know it's a bit of a first. We've seen some sort of graffiti art before actually, so it's not a first at all. Anyway, that's where we're going. I'll talk to you in about 30 kilometers because there's not much to see before then. Certainly not a lot of traffic. Actually, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more. It's a stunningly beautiful day. Really missed it. We've had rain for the best part of a week, which actually coincided with Mrs. Yakko and I celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary, and we actually went away, and it's the first time we've been away for 5 years because of looking after the goats. But Mrs. Yakko managed to train up a friend of ours, and she's been house sitting for us, and she successfully milked, which is fantastic, and she seemed to enjoy it as well. So thank you to you, Gaitan. I know you don't watch these, but thank you anyway, can't I? It's only polite. Something I'll just mention, we're actually currently on the stage 5 of the Tour of Catalunya, which came through a week before last. I do have some footage of it. I was planning to put it together, so that's something probably for next week. We've just popped this way across the old bridge over the Siarana because I have to show you this. This is something that just brings gladness to my soul. The Siarana has now been running. Isn't that beautiful? If only there were trout in it. The Siarana has now been running probably for 2 months, maybe 2 months, and it hadn't been running. I've shown you that so many times, dry as a bone. It's probably been dry for the best part of 4 years, and now it's flowing again. And at the same time, all of those reservoirs that we went to see together, they are filling. I think they're now actually saying that we are beyond a drought, which is fantastic news. Hola, bon dia. Ah, 3 young mums with their kids. Oh, and this is how they announce, oh no, I'm joining a cycling tour. Here they come. The music's nothing to do with the cycling tour. Wow, look at that. The music's they're making a public service announcement over the tannoy of the village of Garcia. But that was an official tour, as in, you know, pay and someone will drive you somewhere nice. And they were just finishing, and I'm just starting. I was a bit cold when I got up this morning. I thought, no, look at that, I'll have a cup of tea first. So what else can I tell you? There's loads of things actually. After I made that Fat Bloke Chats About Cycling video, Orbea got in touch. It's probably unrelated, but it'd be lovely if it was actually, they're influenced by me, but I can't believe it. They're sending both the Gain and the Denna for me to test imminently, I understand. The other thing that was much less expected after that video was that Kickstarter startup company Strassmeister, who have not said a word in a month, have also been in touch. And anyway, they say they're sending the bike again. I talked to them yesterday, and apparently it was going to go in a bike box and off to the couriers yesterday. Oh look, what another thing. It's one thing after the next at the moment. This is my most often ridden route. Regulars will know it. I'm on the river Ebro, and this is the Pass de Lassa, the donkey pass, and they've completely resurfaced the whole thing. It really wasn't all that bad. I mean, I wouldn't have thought about it, and they've completely resurfaced the whole 12-kilometre stretch. Beats me. I'm not complaining. I mean, look at it. It's shiny. I was really hoping for ibex when we came through the Pass Lassa today. It's a bit late in the day for them, but I've still got some hope. But you can imagine mountain goats on this stuff. I mean, it's just a huge playground for them. This is one of my favourite spots. It's a pity that the road is so busy, but it does offer one of the few ways through this little mountain range. There he goes. Salvador Trias. He nods to me now. It took him about 3 years, maybe 4 years before he nodded. He used to ignore me completely. Terribly, terribly rude. I think it's such a faux pas to do that, but he obviously disagreed. He's the holder of most of the KOMs around here. The uphill ones. The uphill ones. This is something I can't get used to. Greenery. Everything is green. You're used to seeing the trees green because they're irrigated, but grass, weeds. Back at the farm, my rather aging tractor's broken down, and we've got weeds way past waist level. I mean, the goats aren't saying that they're unhappy. They're getting ever so picky with it though, because there's so much. Just about the only real descent on the ride today. Just down to the Ebro itself in Fleesh. It's not much of one, but it does show off the dam rather nicely. And that's the dam that diverts the water under the river, under the town, to a hydro. We're not going over the dam today. We're off upriver. I'll show you that again though. Those chemical works have been there since the 1780s, and it was when they opened that actually Ribarroca, where we're going, began to re-emerge from its, well, it's in a dormant state. There was hardly anyone left living there, but we'll talk more about that when we get closer. It's not the prettiest of sights, but unfortunately it's one we're going to have to get used to seeing, because though the chemical plant is now closed, or is about to close, I can't quite remember which, because of the environmental damage it's caused, the company that own it have elected to keep it open with a skeleton staff of 20 for research, just so they won't have to pay the tens of millions of cleanup costs if they were to close it altogether. So these 20 guys are going to have the best job in the world. They'll have nothing to do. There is no research. Shocking really, they're allowed to get away with it. That's what I've heard, whether it's true or not. Just coming up to what I call the Big Dipper. It's actually a lot less fun than it ought to be in both directions. Right, so We've made it to Riba-Roca-d'Ebra. I've always seen it as a unassuming town, because if you do go into Riba-Roca-d'Ebra, it just seems quite a modern town with some quite a few sort of detached houses, obviously built maybe 70s, 80s, 90s, and you think, nah. But then of course you decide to do a video there and you do the research. It's one of the oldest towns around. There's remains here going back to Neolithic times. There are 2 Iberian villages, circa 600 to 800 BC, and that's the history before the Romans arrived. In 2015 they found a Roman villa nestled. Huge, great thing. But there's lots of things which are unusual about Riba-Roca-d'Ebra. One of them is that when Spain was reconquered from the Moors in the 1100s, this town was included within that, and they were taken over by Christians, namely the Knights Templars. And it was the Knights Templars who used to keep Jerusalem. It was the Crusades. They were the Crusaders. Obviously, had a big thing about Moors. They didn't like them. Didn't like Muslims. Racist. But here in Riba-Roca-d'Ebra, they allowed the Moors to continue. And despite a proclamation in the 1300s that decreed that all Muslims must convert to Christianity, the Templars here allowed them to continue. Not only allowed them to continue, actually charged them a tariff so that they could have a mosque here, which sort of goes rather against the grain. So imagine everyone's surprise when in the 1600s Queen Isabel finally decided to actually boot all of the Muslims and Jews out of Spain and nick their land. What they found here in Riba-Roca, instead of converted Muslims, who they then kicked out anyway, they found 94% of the population actively practicing Islam under the castle of the Knights Templars. They booted them out anyway and nicked their lands. So that was one unusual thing about Riba-Roca-d'Ebra. The other one is that around 2015, a local, I don't know, actually I should find out a bit more about this before I talk about them, because I've got a funny feeling that they were expats and they might have even been Brits. So they've worked with the government of this village to allow them to do artwork, an exterior artwork. And they asked the population of the village if they would like to put up their houses as potential canvases for this artwork. And so what we're going to do is we're going to search for it, and we're going to, well, ride past a lot of it, I hope. That's the building of the local government, the Ayuntament. It's huge. But it's only a little town. Now somewhere I've got a map of all of the different artworks. That one apparently is the Riba-Roca Dream Tree by Marianne Lou. Oh, that's a very fancy church. St Bartholomew, I think. So, I don't know this part of town at all. I've only ever been on the outsides. So I thought I'd just ride around a bit and see what we can see. Little fixer-upper. Imagine every hour when those bells go off. Now, the other thing I know about this art is that it's not supposed to be permanent. What they do is they have a new festival every year, and they have some permanent pieces and they have some temporary pieces, and you can tell because some of it's quite faded and some of it's well preserved, unlike the castle of Riba Ebro, which is that. As I understand it, that's all that's left. It was a Knights Templar castle. It got destroyed in one of the many civil wars that Spain has faced. But I love the fact that these sworn enemies of Islam were happy for them to live here, work here, and pay taxes to them here for hundreds of years. Anyway, the castle was originally Moorish. So there's an open gate I should be showing you. So I thought I'd walk through it and see what's here. And this poor sad little bit of castle. So I wanted a nice place to stop and have a chat with you about some of the legends of Riba. Now, obviously, because the Knights Templars were unofficially allowing the Muslims here to practice their faith, they were subject to some lawlessness. There were brigands who would regularly rob them here, and it got an extremely bad situation, but the Templars couldn't do anything about it because they were allowing them to continue here, and they shouldn't have even existed, so they weren't allowed to. They decided they couldn't intervene. And as soon as the brigands found that out, then the raids became more and more frequent and more bloody. And so there was one Moorish chap who finally had had enough, and he decided to form his own band of brigands and rob the local villages, the Christian villages. And his name was El Gegol. And El Gegol was absolutely feared because he was really, I don't know the backstory about him, but he was an extremely violent man, and I suspect it's because of things that had been done to him or his family or his neighbours over the years, over the decades. And so his calling card was to decapitate the men of the houses that he would raid, and he would leave the others to tell the tale. And so when he was eventually caught up with, as is inevitable, his head was cut off, and it survived on a spike outside Riba for 40 years before it was eventually taken down. Yeah, that one's quite faded. These houses are very grand, and yet there's a heck of a lot of them that are actually falling down with no roofs. I must confess I'm struggling to find the 35 pieces of art. I think we've seen about 8, 9. It doesn't help that I've only got the map on a tiny little picture on my phone. Let's try down that way. I think I definitely need a better map. Like a mini version of the hanging houses of Cuenca. Imagine the views, you've got the river right here. Right, I've just been looking at my tiny photograph of where the art is, and there's another one by the same guy who did the art is always something hidden thing, which I thought was quite clever. So let's go and see his stuff. Unfortunately, and almost inevitably, it's uphill. Now, what's prettier, the art or the little sweet cat looking at us? I'm well and truly lost now. It's because I'm trying to find specific things in an absolute labyrinth. I can't believe there's so much uphill here. It's 16% if you're wondering. Well, that was a lot of uphill. And we've got this. Well, at the moment I'm feeling ever so sorry, Reba, but a little bit disappointed. Oh, right, all is forgiven. Crikey. It's a hairless cat and a hairless lady. That's actually really, well, it's the size of it. And she's quite pretty. And behind us here, oops, sorry, there's an angel, or Icarus. Mind you, it looks like he's got boobs, so probably not Icarus. Sadly, we picked up a bit of a headwind for the return journey. I think I'm gonna play the music and have a bit of a breather myself. Question is, yes, there's some interesting history there, but the question is, was Reba Rocker's art worth about 60 kilometers of pain, no, of joy? Well, the way home wasn't joyous. It was a horrendous headwind coming through the gorge behind me. I was crawling along, doing about 16, 17 kilometers an hour, and it's flat, even maybe slightly downhill. So yeah, it was pretty horrendous. And I don't know, I was rather hoping there'd be 35 beautiful pieces of art, and each one you could just spend, you know, a while at least gazing at, wondering over. But apart from 2 or 3 pieces, that was a load of rubbish, wasn't it? Anyway, that's all we got for this week. So until the next one. Thanks for watching.